there's a big red thing over the top that says live. But we're here now.
Yes, yeah, hi.
That's the main thing. Right, okay. So I'll make an introduction. Good evening and welcome to the Wiltshire Business Club chat, which runs every month. And good evening, Tim.
Hello.
Hello. It's good to see you here.
I find right here. Never famous for being on time. Not on time tonight.
These things happen. I mean, this is live broadcasting. At least once we're going, we don't have technical problems.
My eldest, actually, I claim I'm always on time, just very efficient. My eldest is 18, thinks that I'm always late, and described me recently as a useless time lord. So that gives you an idea about my timekeeping. I think I'm just efficient.
Right, gotcha. Understood.
Yep.
Right. Okay. Now let's start at the beginning.
Yeah. So I'm just trying to get a decent angle because I know I'm bumping around a bit. I'll try to settle that down when I can get the right angle. Yeah.
Are you happy with that?
I'm not terribly comfortable, but I'm trying to get.
No, get comfortable, then we'll start because I'm going to edit.
Can't quite get the right height for some reason. Such is life. I'll carry on fiddling and hopefully get there eventually. Almost at it. That's more comfortable. Yeah. Okay. Right.
Okay. Now let's start at the beginning with a question, which is obviously the answer is aimed at the people who are in the Wiltshire Business Club. What do you do?
I'm a solicitor. My firm is Bernallick and Bishop. I've got about 50 staff, and I'm the only equity partner, so I own it. So I'm a solicitor, but I don't currently practice law. I describe myself as an entrepreneur who owns a law firm.
Oh, right. Okay. Now, what services do you provide to local business?
We provide a complete range of services to private and business clients. So just about anything you'd expect a normal high street firm to provide, anything from sort of divorce to debt recovery, from commercial property to consumer law, and some niches as well. If you want someone to do maritime law or that kind of stuff, that's not us. But we do everything you'd expect, and we have some quite good specialties as well.
Understood. Now, how did you become a solicitor? What decided you to go into the profession?
That's a very good question. Probably, I think my brother was a solicitor. He's 18 years older than me. Got a big gap. There are the two of us, and he's actually my full brother. So I guess he was a solicitor, and perhaps I kind of followed him. I didn't really think much of it. I suppose I decided when I was about 14, and never really thought about it again for another 30 years.
Understood. Now you're also in commercial property.
Yes.
Could you tell us the story?
Yeah, at the moment, I've got an office, and I've got 3 offices. One of them in Andover is the only of the 3 I actually own. And we're in the process, a very drawn-out process, of getting it converted into 6 residential flats.
Mm-hmm.
So as a result, I started doing that, went on various courses, being part of a very, very good mentorship, which specialises in converting offices to offices to residential flats, and that's the plan, to do probably 2 or 3 of those a year for the next few years until the government changed the rules. Because currently, under what's known as prior approval, you can do it without planning permission.
Oh, right, okay. It sounds like an interesting thing to be involved in, because you're actually taking.
Yeah, I think I'm 54 now, so it does prove, I think, you can teach an old dog new tricks.
Right. Okay. I can give you a couple of years on that. Well, in fact, more than that, really. Angelica's watching us, so. Okay, now, in terms of the business club, how did you become involved with the Wiltshire Business Club? How did you hear about it?
That's a good question. Again, I can't remember. I've been aware of it for years. I know some of my guys have attended in the past.
Okay.
And I pretty came across it online and thought, yeah, that's something. Now it's online, it's easy for me to contribute. So I think it was purely that.
All right. And have you been able to get to any of the meetings? I know
I haven't so far. I think normally you're over Devizes way.
Yeah.
Of course, Salisbury, we rather feel, rather remote from the rest of Wiltshire. There's Salisbury and there's the rest of Wiltshire.
Okay.
So we don't get across there quite as perhaps often as I would. So haven't made a physical meeting. I know some of my team have in the past, but perhaps I should.
Well, I mean, the situation, Roland is looking to have a movable meeting. So Devizes, Salisbury, and somewhere else in Wiltshire. So we may well come over your way, which would make that
that'll be good.
The other thing that's happening is we're going to start virtual meetings as well. Mm-hmm. So we're taking a vote at the moment, whatever's best day is, and people can come on camera and we can all talk together. And the systems will allow 9 of us around the table, and we can have a good chat. Now, you mentioned earlier your business services and the 6. I've lost my notes.
Yeah, the business six pack.
Yes,
Yeah, basically,
that's it.
we think every business needs to make sure they've got as many of these documents in place, and there are six of them. First of all is the shareholders agreement.
Okay.
That, of course, assumes you've got a company. People don't, but they do have a company. They do need a bespoke shareholders agreement. People do often buy companies off the shelf, and actually we often advise our clients to do it because it's cheaper than coming through us. But then you really need to make the articles
All right. Okay.
and particularly the shareholders agreement.
Right. Okay. I think we lost you for a moment.
Okay.
If you could just pick up from point 2.
Yeah. Okay. So number 2, again, depending on your business structure, it's a partnership agreement. What some people don't realise is once they go into business with someone else, unless they've actually formed a limited company, then that automatically means they are in a partnership.
Yes.
If they have no partnership agreement, it's basically the terms of it are set out by chaps who are 150 years old, because the 1890 Partnership Act, which is extremely out of date, sets all your regulations about how you can run your business. So it's pretty daft, really. So if anybody is in business with somebody else, it's either a shareholders agreement if they've got a company, or if not, they do need a partnership agreement. We find that often people think they're okay until they fall out and suddenly realise half the things they thought they could do, they can't do, and their partner can do, all sorts of nightmares. So that's number 2. Number 3 is probably one of the simplest, terms and conditions. I cannot believe how many businesses don't have terms and conditions. They simply rely on just an ordinary deal, or perhaps they've got one off the internet, or nick somebody else's, or rely on the other people on the other side. It's a very simple mistake, not having bespoke terms and conditions. Very simple to do, and it can make quite a difference. For example, whether you can claim your costs on debt collection, these sort of things. So terms and conditions, that's number 3. Number 4 is a will. Now, again, lots of people know they should have wills, but it's often the corner of the desk file. That's what I call things I'll put off until tomorrow. It's my corner of the desk file, deal with it tomorrow. And I think wills are one of those. People not only need a will, especially in business, they need an up-to-date will as well. And I think many businesses simply haven't got around to it, or think perhaps they don't need it. But of course, if someone does pass away, what happens to your business interest? Unless you make it clear that it'll simply follow the intestacy rules. So it's absolutely essential to get one, and also to update it regularly, because business circumstances change, families change, people get remarried, divorced, have children, parents die, all sorts of things. So that really needs to be done very quickly, and that's pretty simple again. You know, the basic charge for us, and we're pretty average on that, like £150 plus. So that's number 3. Number 4 rather. Number 5 is a bit of a lie to a will, and that's a lasting power of attorney. Now, again, a lot of these things are a bit like insurance documents. You don't need them till you need them. But if you don't have them and you have one of these events occurs, you can be in all sorts of trouble. And a lasting power of attorney simply means that you can pass on certain business decisions or personal decisions or your health decisions onto someone else. So if you become incapacitated for whatever reason, somebody else can sign on your behalf. Now, often that's a medical incapacitation, perhaps a heart attack, or you get hit by a car, or whatever else puts you into hospital for a while, and you're not physically around to sign those checks, those bank mandates, those documents. But also it can be as simple actually as being out of the country. A chap I know in property recently had exactly that. He was in business with someone else, and this particular document had needed 2 signatures. And again, he was out of the country, no lasting powers of attorney, so he had to go to all sorts of difficult arrangements to get it done. So it's very simple. It's a once and for all document, and it can be as much or as little as you use. So a lasting power of attorney. And lastly, again, depending on your business circumstances, is the contract of employment. Again, if anybody does employ anybody, they need that contract of employment, and it's well worth getting it properly drafted. Because some of the clauses you can put in make a big difference. So for us, we're very clear, for example, on sick benefit. We limit that sick benefit to people who start usually to 5 or 10 days a year, although it is discretional after that. And that saved us enormous amounts of time with perhaps the occasional member of staff in the last 20 years who haven't been up to scratch or been very unwell. But again, it allows you, if you want to be more flexible. And we've had one of our longer serving staff members who's fabulous. I'd clone her tomorrow if I could. She's been very poorly recently, and off for 4 or 5 months. We paid her fully throughout. But if she was someone perhaps we're having problems with, who was new, who was failing, then we'd have that option. And that alone has saved us an enormous amount of money. So those clauses you need to get right. Restricted covenants, gardening leave, all those things. So they're the 6 things. So it's from the beginning, it's shareholders agreements, partnership agreements, terms and conditions, wills, lasting powers of attorney, and employment contracts. Every business really needs as many of those as are appropriate. A business six-pack. Everyone should have one.
Okay, but right, let's just talk for a minute about the benefits of if you start off as a trader and you're on your own, what are the benefits of becoming a limited company?
Well, I think in some areas you're getting no choice. For example, a property, which is the other field I'm heavily involved in, it's going to make a big difference in the next few years. At the moment, if you're a buy-to-let landlord and you're holding property in your sole name, and then as from 2017, the government gradually will take off the tax relief you have for interest. So at the moment, you can set off your interest against tax. By 2020, if you're a sole trader, an individual, that will have gone. And the only way to get that is by having it in a company. So sometimes there can be tax advantages, corporation tax rather than CGT, these sort of things. So tax is obviously a big thing, limited liability, all sorts of other reasons. So it really depends how you want to run your business, what your plans are. And again, sometimes banks will be more comfortable knowing there's a company behind you. But it's a question really. I think everybody has their own individual circumstances, and often it can be tax reasons. So that's number one. So that's your company. Yep.
Right. Okay. I'm fully with that. Now, in terms of your company structure, your solicitor structure is slightly different because you're a sole partner, aren't you?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a bit unusual. Firms of my size gradually are having less partners, but probably 7 or 8 years ago, the average for a firm my size was 7 or 8 partners. Now it's probably 5 or 6. But even so, it's just me. And that's perhaps a little unusual. But it does mean we make very clear, quick decisions. We've got a very defined strategy. And we're very fast moving. I'm a great believer that a donkey is just, or a camel is just a horse designed by a committee. So, partnerships can be powerful, very powerful, but you do need that clear sense of direction and clear strategy. A good example of how they can't work, or they work badly rather, a marketing chap I know, one of his friends got a job working for a law firm. Now, this was about 5-6 years ago, working for a big firm in Bristol, really good salary, 70k, marketing job, best salary I had, prestigious law firm. He thought he was made, that was it. He lasted 6 months before he simply resigned. The reason why, that the partners wouldn't accept a single thing he ever suggested. Drove him mad. And I think that's sometimes the weakness of the partnership structure if you haven't got clear leadership.
So you've got, as a leader, and you organise teams of people, don't you, within the company?
Very much so. And we delegate as much as we can down. We always involve them in decision making, and often they'll make the decisions. But ultimately, you do need that clear sense of strategy and a final decision. The buck stops here, I guess.
Okay. And what, in terms of the teams themselves, are they autonomous, or do they report back to you, or?
Yeah, yes, they all report back to us, to myself and my practice director ultimately. But it depends on them. Some of them are far more involved than others. Some of them tick over, and we really, have to make decisions. Some, perhaps the law is changing, or their personnel issues, or we want to expand the team, or the marketing issues, we're more involved. So it does depend. But yeah, we try to give them as much autonomy as they can take, basically. But I'm a great believer in delegating now. To quote Richard Branson, employ people cleverer than you, and I'm a great fan of that.
Well, that's it. I mean, you've got a great team, built a great team around you, all with different areas of expertise.
Absolutely, yeah.
Because
and over the years, I found what I'm good at. I was a good lawyer, great on my feet in court. Knowledge of law probably was average at best, and I wasn't a detail person, but I'm big picture. So my role is leadership, strategy, and business development.
Yeah, and organisation.
Yeah, although in internal stuff, I tend to pass to other people. I suppose it's so. Again, law firms, once you get to a certain size, you do need other people involved. So a lot of the internal stuff I don't get involved in. I pass to good managers.
Right, and you say you've diversified into property.
Yes.
And are you looking for people to become involved with that, with buildings which they've heard of, or?
Yeah, well, in terms of the big opportunity at the moment, and some of them have been taken, are converting offices. What's B1 planning offices? That's your ordinary office. You can convert into residential without planning permission. You have to apply for prior approval, which is sort of permitted development, and it's just an £80 application. Broadly, if the local authority get it right, the planning department can't turn it down. It takes 8 or 10 weeks. Yeah. And then you get your planning. You can't alter anything on the outside of the building, but you can do whatever you want to inside, unless you've got a listed building, all those sort of things. But broadly, it gives huge scope for development of offices. Now, quite a few have been done, but I'm quite convinced that, especially in areas like Wiltshire, there are huge numbers of offices out there which aren't listed, where people perhaps own their offices, but actually they're a bit nervous. They might be aware of the possibility of converting them, but they have no idea how to do it themselves, and they're nervous of being ripped off by a builder, and they haven't got the confidence or the knowledge to go in and develop something themselves. So another thing I'm looking to do is actually work with them on a joint venture on the basis they hold the building. Provided I'm satisfied it's the right building and they're a stable business, I get responsible for the development. We then sell or hold the flats at the end, and then pay back their commercial value of the additional value of the building, pay all the costs off, and divide the profit 50-50. It's a very simple joint venture. It's something I've taken from my mentor, and he's done it, and he's now got a portfolio he's built up in 4 or 5 years of £75 million.
Wow.
It's a
okay. Yes. So obviously, if anybody has office buildings, then get in contact with Tim, and you can take it from there. Now, one thing that does interest me and impress me is your use of social media. Yeah.
Because I suppose my role, I don't run cases. Business development is very important to me. So the internet has always been important to us. We run news websites. And so social media is something I've kept an eye on, and we've tried quite a lot.
Okay.
So, for example, as you usually expect, we have a profile on LinkedIn, and there's a Twitter feed, and there's YouTube channels with videos, and there's Facebook, all the usual sort of stuff we control through Hootsuite. Now, we weren't doing a lot of that. And to be honest, I don't think we were getting much response. It's all very well pumping out fabulous stuff, but if nobody's listening, it doesn't get very far. So we'd really cut back, I think, on what we were doing. However, in the last 2 or 3 months, I've finally cracked it, I think, as far as I'm concerned, because I found that the property community loves Facebook, really loves Facebook.
Yep.
And it's quite a surprise to me. So therefore, I know regularly, 2 or 3 times a day, I'll go into Facebook. I'm probably a member of a dozen groups or so, property-related groups, and I'll see what they're up to, comment as appropriate. And quite often, actually, they want some legal advice or they want a lawyer. And we've got quite a few bits of work already out of that, and make some useful contacts. Plus, it's a great way of keeping in contact with those I've been meeting in the last year, 18 months, I suppose. Often around the country, who we talk to, work to, share ideas with. It's what works for the property community. It's a sense of community, and that's the first time I've really found that social media has worked for law firms. I think it can work in other ways, but we couldn't get it right, and I think most don't. I think there's a great danger that everyone says, "Oh, social media is great," and everyone does it, but actually, you've got to see what it achieves, and it wasn't working for us until now. I think I've lost you. I'm still here.
That's it. You've got it. You mentioned earlier we should both be still here. If there is any problems, Gianfranco, welcome. Angelica, welcome. If there is a problem, could you let us know in the chat?
Yes.
The thing that you mentioned this morning was that you got involved in niches in social media.
Yeah, well, I
it's a scatter
niches. There are 10,000 law firms, so I've got a lot of competitors, and a good half of them, for example, do residential conveyancing, and probably half of those do it as well as us. Now, it's not a really great, unique selling point saying we're great at selling your house, but so are 2,500 other law firms. It's quite hard to differentiate yourself. So although we do all the mainstream, the wills, the conveyancing, all those sort of things, we try to find wherever possible a niche where we can really add value, or where we really know our subject. And we tried various things. Some have failed, some have succeeded. So, for example, lease extension. Now, that's a particular area of law. If you own a long leasehold flat, you can force the freeholder to give you an extra 90 years on the lease. So, for example, if you bought a flat in 1970, that's 46 years ago. The old-fashioned leases were 99 years. That would leave you 53 years left. Now, you're going to have problems selling it. You'll have real problems getting a mortgage on that. And so I think the government decided they didn't want everyone running out of their homes. The whole point, we are a property owning country. So therefore, they allowed a system to come into being, which would allow you to force the freeholder to give you an extra 99 years on the lease. 90 years. And that's quite specialist. The average conveyancer might come across it once in 5-10 years. More so in Birmingham or, say, Brighton, where there are lots of flats, less so in Wiltshire. But I've got a team of 4 people. That's all they do. That's really specialist. We started off working for a chap who owns the freeholds to 16,000 flats. And then I suddenly thought, we're quite good at this. Why aren't we doing any other work? Because we haven't told anybody. So we started. So now we've tripled our work. So that's good. We do lots of military divorce. Again, there are differences between military divorce and non-military, things like military pensions, those kind of things. So that's a niche. Our latest niche is for property investors. There are a huge number of people now are investing in property, either individual buy-to-lets or more major scale like I'm doing. And actually, there aren't that many solicitors who are really targeting them. So most of them are going to your average high street conveyancer. Now, your average high street conveyancer will be used to dealing with Mr. and Mrs. Jones, who's buying a dream home. Although they moan about delay, they're not really bothered because actually they're part of a chain. Now, the investor usually has a very different approach. It's all about time.
Yeah.
Time is money, delay, plus the fact that there are lots of other things. There are weird and wonderful things like lease options or rent to rent or all these sort of things. And if you mention that to the average conveyancer, they'll go blank. They're very good at doing residential conveyancing, but they don't understand the more commercial world, I suppose. So we thought, hang on, there's a real gap here. And I was part of the property community for 18 months, networking very heavily. And so we've now set up a specialist team with five people who are specialised. So I've got a specialist property lawyer, a litigator, a specialist tax advisor who's an accountant who we bring in from outside, a lease specialist, and somebody who deals with company and commercial stuff. So, and we're training them one by one to make sure all the weird and wonderful aspects they really understand, and they give a better service to investors. And that's becoming a very successful niche. So we like niches. Niches are good.
No, it's taking the complicated, understanding it, and making it simple.
But I will admit,
we've
tried other niches, we've tried various things, and some have been a complete failure. We tried horse law, for example, but actually it just didn't work. We just couldn't get the work in. And then we also we tried grandparents' rights. Now, particularly when grandparents, lose contact with their children, it can be a very difficult area of law. And so we were getting quite a lot of traffic on our website, but actually we eventually sold the website because we found that the vast majority of people actually wanted legal aid, and we no longer did legal aid. I can't really get it for that kind of work. So we're very successful in getting inquiries, but actually didn't generate cash. So we dumped that. But some things we've tried, some things we've succeeded in. So we're not afraid to try things and fail. Yes.
Well, I think that's got to be true in business.
I think it was Warren Buffett.
You're going to fail more times than you win.
The guy who set up IBM. He was asked, what's the key to business? What's the business success? And he said, double your rate of failure, which I rather like. It's a brave approach, but I think you have to be prepared to fail. Otherwise, you won't try anything new.
That's true. That's true. And the people who do win don't do it first time.
When I say fail and get things wrong, we didn't provide bad advice. It was just that the business model wasn't right. No, I'm not suggesting for one moment. What's coming across
throughout our conversation. You know exactly what you're talking about, and you take everything seriously. And you, as I said earlier, you make it easy for people to approach you and to get a good service. And you listen to what people need and interpret those needs.
I think it's so important. A lot of businesses, no doubt about solicitors are actually much worse than most. Don't listen. And I'll share my pet theory why solicitors don't listen. 3 things. Firstly, we're a bit like primary school teachers. When you go to see your child at primary school, the teacher always sits on her desk or on the seat, and you always end up on that tiny little 5-year-old chair, looking very small. And I think primary school teachers are used to talking down to children, and I'm afraid to say solicitors are just the same. So firstly, can I apologise for that? But I'm afraid it's part of the way we are. Yeah. Secondly, we're very backward looking. Now, one of the reasons is the average age, last time I checked, the average age of partners who run the firm is 58. That's the average age, which means that a whole load of them are wanting to their 60s and longer. Now, I have no problem at all with ageism. I've got one of my lawyers is now 72. And I've been trying to get him to sign a 25-year contract for years. So I have no problem at all with being old. But with some people, when you get to a certain age, some people, unlike you, for example, become quite rigid. And I think lawyers sometimes at that age become very rigid. They get stuck in their ways. And the real problem with lawyers is that if you come to a lawyer for an answer, they will tell you what they think the answer to your problem will be based on law, on statute, and based on case law. Now, what that means, they are looking backwards to predict the future. Their entire training is looking backwards to predict the future. So therefore, when they're asked to look at business without thinking, they're actually getting into that mindset already. And ally that to a natural arrogance, and perhaps that some of them are stuck in their ways. And it means that law firms can be very, very slow to move, like super tankers. Yeah, no, yeah.
Okay, you said that, I didn't.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah,
you're saying that from the inside, which makes all the difference in the
we need
world.
to do better, in my opinion. You know, there's some great lawyers. I've got some good ones. We don't always get it right, but I think that we need to improve.
Yeah, and listening. I mean, the same true in business, isn't it? You succeed in business not by telling people about yourself, but by listening to the customer. And it's not a skill everybody has. I mean, going out and shouting, "I've got this for sale," doesn't work, especially in the social media world, does it? You've got to get involved. Yeah.
Yeah.
For
years, I
networked
enormously locally, and I think I did my bit by building up a huge network. So at one stage, we ran 3 breakfast clubs. We did monthly. We ran those ourselves for many years. And then I attended numerous other breakfasts or whatever. I was starting to run quite a bit of weight, so I thought I'd cut back on the breakfast a bit. And these days, I think, having spent probably 10 years on a huge level of general networking, we've now changed. I changed my tack. So all my networking now, or 99% of it, is either property related. I do that 3 or 4 times a month, or actually we run dining clubs now, our own. So we're a Salisbury one, and we also run a property one based on the south coast, and it's very targeted at sort of at the right kind of people, I suppose, who we've met through networking. Because otherwise, the danger is with networking, perhaps we don't always meet the kind of people we want to meet.
Well, it's always a difficulty, isn't it? Because if you're going to a networking meeting and you don't know anybody, then it's very slow to get going, isn't it? You've got to keep going back.
You've got to stick at it.
Networking doesn't work first time. You've got to persist, haven't you? Exactly so. Exactly so. Right. Well, on that note, if you'd like to run through your 6 list again, and then we'll,
your 6 packs of business success, your legal pack. Right. Number 1, it's a shareholders agreement. Number 2, a partnership agreement, obviously depending on the structure of your business. Number 3, terms and conditions. Number 4, a will. That's really important. Number 5, a lasting power of attorney. And last but not least, if you have staff, you really must get properly drafted employment contracts.
Wonderful. And how can people contact you?
That's pretty easy. We are either online, obviously our website. It's www. Sorry. How can they contact us? Well, they either by email. We have another number of offices. The main one is Salisbury. So Salisbury @Bishopslaw. That's Bishop with an S law, bishopslaw.com. Or the website, which is bishopslaw.co.uk, or by phone, normally 01722 422 300. There are some other numbers as well, but that's the main switchboard. Pleasure talking to you too. Thank you.
Tim, it's been a pleasure talking. And look forward to seeing you at a meeting, possibly in Salisbury.
And I'll try to shut up and listen more than speak next time.
No, you're here to talk, and that's been wonderful and brilliant. And thank you to everybody who's watched us. And if you'd like to say good night to everybody, this will be in the recording. So if you'd like to say something to
giving us your time. If you want any legal advice, you know who we are.
Excellent. Okay. Nice to see you, Tim, and everybody who's watched. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next month with another episode when we're talking to some of the other members of the Business Club. But tonight has been brilliant. Tim, thank you, and catch you all later. Good night.